We're going to talk about one of my most favorite topics, training, namely lifting weights. Listen, you are busy women. You do not have a lot of spare time. So you need to make sure that the time you do spend working out is really effective. I think we can overestimate the kind of effort and like time commitment that goes into training and getting good results from it. And if you've ever watched me chit chatting on my Instagram or here, I always talk about how I train for half an hour, and I don't and I can't train for much longer than that. 45 minutes would be a bit of a push. And I have it down to a fine art how to make these sessions absolutely most bang for your buck. You don't need to be training every single day. In fact, if you did, I'd be wondering what you were really doing. A whole lot of nothing sometimes is the right way to think about it. So I want you to look at your training through the lens of personal leadership. Sometimes we just sort of take it for granted, and I want you to really treat your training like a wee project that you do for you. I don't want you to be faffing about wasting time. You don't have time to waste. Plus, it'll let you really fall in love with training the efficiency of it. Okay, so we're going to train like you mean it and learn how to get the absolute most out of your workouts. The best way for you to use this masterclass is to be interactive and ask questions as you go, because then you'll leave here feeling incredibly grounded and excited about training. So we want to maximize your time, build confidence in the gym, build confidence doing things that you would have ordinarily probably not tried, and then actually see the results of your hard effort. Right, so look, the majority of your training program is centered around strength training and lifting weights. So suppose we want to understand first and foremost what is strength training. And so in the most back to front way, let's understand what it's not. Lifting weights is not strength training. So hear me out on that one. Just because you pick up dumbbells and move them from A to B does not mean that is strength training. There's a fine line between exercise and training, and we want to stay firmly on the training side of it. That's whenever you're in a gym or you're at home training or whatever, wherever you do your training, if you're not being intentional about it, making sure that you're using the time effectively and efficiently, you could very well be falling into the just exercising category, which there's nothing wrong with. Sometimes I'll do a training session, which is really just for the purpose of moving my body. But the majority of the sessions that I do, I want them to be efficient, effective, and build me some muscle and strength and help my bones. And so that has to be hard to do. And it requires a bit of progressive overload. It requires progression. All these things you're going to learn about tonight. But if you ever find yourself just moving the dumbbells from A to B, and sometimes it's a wee bit burny, then you're probably not actually entering into the strength training category. Even though you could be following every single exercise on your program, if you're not doing that with progressive overload in mind, then you will end up falling into the exercising category. So what I mean by that is, unless you're measurably getting stronger, which is easy to figure out, you don't need to be on with a calculator, I'll explain, but you're not strength training if you can't prove to yourself, this is going better and I'm getting better at this every single week that passes, or every couple of weeks. So that means if you have no idea what weights that you can lift or what you should be lifting, then you are just exercising. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with exercising, but remember, the majority of your training sessions have to be centered around making progress. So if I said to you, Sarah, we're going to just squat today, and what's going to be the most weight that we're going to attempt to squat? And you go, I don't really know. Then there's a good chance that that exercise or that session has just been sort of a bit of a spin in the wheels session. So you want to understand how much you can lift, and we're going to learn that tonight too. I think we all kind of get to a point now, which is, I'm glad that we realize women need to strength train and lift weights. And going out walking, and there's all this nonsense about walking with a weighted vest. I mean, I've had a weighted vest downstairs for donkey's years, and it's great, and it makes some exercises a bit more difficult. It makes cardiovascular training a wee bit harder. It doesn't build muscle, not by any means, but there is a wee bit of noise, especially in the menopause world, about weighted vests. But going out walking and, you know, doing Pilates and yoga is not enough to stimulate the body to grow and change. And I love all three of those things, and I do those things, but I know that it's not enough, and my strength training is going to be the pillar, one of the key pillars. women and men, look, I'm not forgetting men, but this is all about us. Women are at risk of developing sarcopenia and osteopenia as we age, and it's part of the aging process, or it potentially is not part of the aging process if you strength train. What that means is sarcopenia, which I have missed a letter and tightened too fast. My fingers go too fast in my brain sometimes. Sarcopenia and osteopenia are the medical terms for losing bone and muscle mass gradually. It's part of the aging process. So after around about age 30 to 35, you gradually experience a muscle decline and a bone decline as you age. However, that's not a guarantee. That can be reversed and stopped if you strength train and lift weights. And why we don't want to put ourselves at risk of sarcopenia and osteopenia. Sarcopenia is the muscle loss problem. Osteopenia is the precursor to osteoporosis. So if you ever heard or know someone who has developed osteoporosis, they have likely not been strength training, right? We probably know at least one person who's been affected by osteoporosis. And it means you're more at risk of gaining a fracture from a simple trip and fall. But we want to build muscle to get strong because it helps improve your quality of life. It improves your body composition. It offsets disease and age-related decline. It helps you manage your weight easier. It helps your metabolic health, your self-esteem, confidence, personal leadership. Really, it's just a win-win, to be completely honest with you. And the time commitment in doing that is way less than you think. If you can train 3 times a week for 40 minutes, you're going to be flying. And I mean really train and make those sessions worth your while. The reason that I can get in and get out in half an hour is because I'm planning the session and I'm following the plan and I'm going out of my way to make it hard. And then I'm not faffing about trying to make it worth my while. You know what I mean? So in short, we want to lift weights and strength train. If you want to look better, feel better, be healthier, leaner, independent, strength training is a non-negotiable. Now, the problem with just showing up, as in going to the session or just going to the gym, that's when we're just exercising, and that's not going to get you where you need to be. And that matters because, in my experience, women often can underestimate how hard they need to train to see real changes. So then in turn, they end up over delivering themselves in their training sessions, as in doing too many sessions, training 5 and 6 and 7 days a week, throwing in all different kinds of stuff like cardio and HIIT and all this stuff. I think we also then overestimate how much time specifically is required to get what we want. So what that means is, if you know what you're doing and your session's planned and you make it worth your while, you don't need to dedicate an awful lot of your time to actually strength training. 30 to 45 minutes is a nice sweet spot for a training session. There's a couple of reasons why going longer would become less efficient. So a 60-minute session without intensity and progressive overload is way less efficient than 30 minutes of focused progressive effort. Just because you're there for 60 minutes doesn't make it more worth your while. And another thing is, let's say you really are going really, really hard at it for an hour, chances are that the latter part of that session is more laden with fatigue and you're probably not getting the most out of yourself in that session. So in my opinion, 45 minutes is a sweet spot, and that does require you to keep effort up continuously, which is hard. So look, you see where I'm going with this. You can often assume that showing up is just enough. Going to the gym or going to the workout and going through the motions, that's not enough to get results. We have to make it worth our while. And listen, your body is very smart and she adapts very fast. So we need to keep giving the body reasons to adapt. And what that looks like in real life is, once upon a time, a bodyweight squat was really, really hard, and then it's not. So your body has adapted. The muscles have become accustomed to what you're asking of them. And if you then only continue to do bodyweight squats, there's no more reason for your body to grow or change or adapt. So then you just start to coast along. So then you add weight to the squat and the story continues for years and years. There's a small fear in women that we will get bulky. Not all women. A lot of us are kind of aware that that's a bit of a myth at this point. You will not build muscle by accident, and you'll not build muscle just by touching weights either. You have to go out of your way to get there, and it should be something that you want to get excited about. Now, everyone here has a program, that's been meticulously designed for the busy woman. And it's built for efficiency. So you really should make the most of it. I was talking to a client today, and it's her first week. She's here like a couple of days, but she has been training for years. Don't know, she might be on this call. Make yourself known to me if you're there. And she sent me an example of one of the sessions she had been doing, and it came from an app and it was all designed. And I immediately knew this has been designed by a man for a majority male population. And the session was basic, but it wasn't anywhere near the level of efficiency that we needed for a busy woman like her. And so whenever she done her first session, which was just there the Saturday, there were way less actual sets and exercises in it. Amy there, she said hello. So Amy told me that there were about 2/3 of the exercises in her plan that she had done with me versus what she had done before, and she was killed in a good way. Struggle to sit in the toilet, which isn't what we want all the time, but it's nice to break you in, right? So remember, your program is built for efficiency, so make the most out of it. Look at it before you go in. What am I doing today? Don't just wing it. Look at, right, I'm supposed to be doing squats and press ups or whatever is on your program. And the quicker you just commit to starting to actually track your training sessions, the quicker you'll get to understand your strength, the quicker you make progress. So then you're not going in scratching your head going, I'll just lift the 5s. Sure, that's weights. And then before you know it, you're just coasting along. I done a quick sum in honor of this training. And we have a gym in Derry, and just taking that gym alone, not including any sessions that we've created for people or even done online, we have trained over 250,000 individual women in sessions. And say that's assuming that the same person might attend 3 times a week, but over the years, 250,000 women have been trained by Synergy in person, and we have this down to a fine art. So and we have refined our process and continue to train our team so that this is efficient. So you can rest assured that your program has been tried and tested true and it works. You'll notice that we don't do the traditional bro split. That might be a new phrase to you, but you'll sure have heard of arm day, leg day, chest and triceps. So show of hands, let me know, has anyone followed a plan like that or been handed down a plan by that from somebody, or maybe followed one online where you do like back and biceps, chest and triceps, leg day? I'm sure that's how I first got into training. And where that comes from, really, historically, most personal trainers probably came from bodybuilding. And back in the day, that was the way that everyone trained. But if you think about it, like, look, just to make the most sense, and the majority of research that we have on training, right? The comments are coming in now. Yes, back in the day, those were the standard training sessions. Yes, leg day. And like a lot of like women's first introduction to the gym is usually being guided by maybe their brother or their partner or somebody that they know who's also a man who's probably follows this program. And sure, that might be fine for a male's goal who wants to have a big chest and triceps, and they don't care too much about legs. But listen, no, the thing is, bodybuilders and bodybuilding type training have to focus on hyper focusing on specific body parts to bring up as much volume as they can. And they train for just purely something called hypertrophy, which is just trying to get the muscles to go bigger. They don't really layer in strength and functionality and cardiovascular benefit, and they want to reduce energy output as much as possible in their training too, so that they can have all the muscles grow with lots of extra energy. So if you think about it and you do leg day and you maybe train your legs and your glutes, get 1 training session per week on average, and then maybe the volume in that isn't really optimal and you've not really hit a good amount of progressive overload in that session, and maybe your glutes are a big important part of what you want to develop, for example, and they're maybe only getting 2 sets a week. So if you only do that once a week, because then your other day you do your chest and triceps and the other day you do back and arms or whatever, and that would be, this is assuming you train 4 days a week, then you're training these muscle groups 4 times a month. 1 time per week, right? So frequency is really important, and women respond better to different frequency than men. And so, and this is assuming that you never miss a session, then you're hitting your body parts maybe once a week, right? Whereas whenever we optimize your program to have the right volume and we lean into full body splits, you'll be training all your muscle groups up to 16 times a month instead of 4. So you can see how much more quickly you will get progress, and frequency is really important. And the programming is designed in such a way that the volume isn't too much, so that you're not, training a very tired muscle group. These are little nuances you don't need to worry too much about. And maybe later on, when you're getting really advanced into training, you might want to do something a wee bit more detailed, and we might decide, let's do 1 day extra for, what legs, if that's what you want. But the foundation of the program is still built around your full body split. So that means that you're engaging all your muscle groups in less time. We'll often try to use supersets where you'll do 2 exercises back to back, or maybe even 3. So that way we can increase your overall workload and keep your heart rate up. So that's even more bang for your buck. Because oftentimes people will say, what about cardio? And my hope is that your training sessions are so efficient that that mops up a lot of cardiovascular work and fitness for you, so that you're not looking to end up having to go elsewhere. Going out for a specific cardiovascular endurance training session is not something that I do. I am absolutely gassed whenever I'm doing my training, and I'm puffing and panting in between the sets. And that's how we can maximize your time in the gym. But if you've got this perfectly designed plan and you're going in underprepared, like you haven't even looked to see what it is, you haven't even looked to see, do I know these exercises? Do I know where the stuff is? You've no idea what wakes it up because you haven't been tracking. You're not utilizing your warm-up sets right. We'll talk about that. You're just kind of winging the exercises. At least I tried it. Resting too long, having the scroll between your sets, then your intensity drops. You're just watering down the whole efficiency of the system. So get in and get out, and think of it like that. You don't have time to waste. You need to give the muscle a reason to grow. And remember, I said your muscle is an adaptive tissue and very, very clever. It responds very fast. So you need to keep giving it new stimulus. And that typically means not a new exercise. It means just more work, maybe 1 more rep or 1 more kg or something like that. So that's why bodyweight squats were so tough at one point, and now they're your warm-up, and it's not challenging at all. Does that make sense? So I'll take a quick pause after I read you this slide and see if we've got any questions, right? So if you have any, start typing them in now. A few good principles you need to understand just to have a good concept of mastering your own training. You've heard me say this phrase, progressive overload, a lot, and I'll never stop saying it because it's the underpinning principle of strength training and all kinds of training, to be honest. So progressive overload is basically doing more over time. So your muscles need to be challenged in order to grow and get stronger and adapt. So overload is making the work harder progressively, so just over time. So that might look like heavier weights or more reps or more intensity over time. So your bodyweight squat becomes a weighted goblet squat, becomes more weight. Maybe we work up into using a back squat, for example, and that just progresses over time. So you wouldn't just go in and jump into the deep end. You want to progress because your form needs to be good throughout. Compound and isolation exercises, these two here, are just ways that we refer to the muscle groups and the joints that we're working. So multi-joint, multi-muscle groups are targeted at once when you do compound exercises, and your session will have compound exercises as the base of all of the base of the pyramid, or compound exercises. So if you think about a deadlift, right, it's going to activate pretty much all the muscles and joints in your body at once. So that workload is high. That's great. It's so efficient. Think like a squat. Everything's working. You're holding weight here or you're holding it here. Your core's engaged, your back's engaged, your glutes, hamstrings, legs, everything. Compound, many, right? So if you want to get most bang for your buck, we need to utilize compound exercises. There's nothing like that drives me insane as much as, like, I have seen many people training people over the years. Even when I go on holidays, we go to hotel gym, and I see a personal trainer getting a client doing body weight sit-ups and tricep extensions, and that's part of her session. This is a busy woman who probably runs a business and doesn't have time. She needs to be pushing a prowler and doing deadlifts to utilize her time properly. Then at the end, peppered in, we will use single joint exercises. So things like bicep curls. That's okay, that's important, but it's like details at the end. So you'll notice in your session that they come later on. So I'm going to pause for a quick second to see if we have any questions before we get stuck into the next phase, right? And we'll understand sets and reps, progressive overload, and we're going to understand warm-up sets and weight selection. So this is going to be a good juicy part of it. So if you've got any questions, let me know. So we do have one. Should you walk before or after session? So does that just generally, Janine, if you mean just literally doing your steps? There's two sides to that. I would sometimes do a short walk before for no more than 10 minutes as a full body warm-up. It's great to do that on the cross trainer because you're just moving all limbs, and it's a little bit challenging, but not too much because it's going to get your heart rate up. And the main thing about warming up is getting your heart rate up and getting your central nervous system ready to think, oh, I'm about to do something challenging, and it gets blood flowing through your whole, blood flowing through the muscles, which is important. So a short walk before, but if you go out for a big hour's walk and your legs are a wee bit tired, you're not going to be able to do a big session there straight away. So a wee quick warm up is fine, and then walking can become your second priority after that. Now, what warm-ups are advised before lifting weights? That's a great question. So the best warm-up that you can do will be a very quick, dynamic, full body warm-up. So things like a plank walkout, body weight squats, things that utilize your whole body. However, the best warm-up that you can do would be a warm-up set of the exercise you're about to do. So if you were doing a deadlift, that's one of the first exercises in your plan, I would probably have a quick full body warm-up, like 5 to 7 minutes on the cross trainer at a good hard pace, just to wake up everything. Then I might do some plank walkouts just to activate my whole body. But the first actual thing that's really most important is doing a warm-up set of deadlifts. So it's a very light set, very lightweight, that tells my body what's about to happen. I'm going to explain that in a second. So if, for example, one of your first exercises was squats, then body weight squats are the absolute best thing that you could do to warm up before you do a squat. As you work through your session, you will be warm and your muscles will be activated. So once you get later on, there's no need to do big warm-up sets there and then. You don't need to continue to warm up through the session if you're staying with a good intensity and keeping your heart rate up and keeping your muscles warm with blood flow. So we'll understand next sets and reps and progressive overload. Reps, short for repetitions. Sets, a collection of repetitions. So think 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps, right? So your 8 to 10 are how many times you do the exercise, and then your sets are collections of those. And so typically we'll program between 3 and 4 sets in your plan, right? And within sets, we've got warm-up sets, working sets, and top sets. This would be good to make notes. You're going to want to do this. So let's just take a squat, for example, and let's say in your program, you've got 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. So you know that range, 8 to 10, I'll explain what that means as well. Warm-up sets and movement prep are meant to prime and prepare the body for heavier working sets, right? So if you've got 4 sets, if I was going to squat and I have 4 sets in my plan, the very first one's going to be a warm-up set, which is going to be not very challenging, but something that I can take through a full range of motion that primes my body for what I'm about to do. The only way that you will know what is an appropriate warm-up weight for you is to have tracked your sessions for a couple of times and then it's done. But the first couple of sessions require a wee bit of effort. I know without even looking at my app now what I would choose to warm up with because I've done the work it's only a couple of sessions. So commit to that at the start. And you don't want to go in too heavy too soon either. And we'll talk about that as well. So this word here, movement prep, that or movement competency, went too far. It's basically preparing your body for the lift because training is as much neurological as it is physiological, and your brain needs to be ready for it as well. Your central nervous system needs to be primed to train. and you'll get much better bang for your buck, and you'll progress a lot better when you warm up right. So if I was going to work up to my fourth set being my heaviest, hardest set, then I'm going to ascend my way there. If I know, for example, I want to go in to squat 20 kilos, for example, I'm not just going to go straight in and try it, because that would be a completely back to front way to do it. I'd be too fatigued too quickly. I'd be more likely to injure myself because I'm putting myself under what is my maximum load without being warm and prepared. So start and go up the steps. If you find that at time you come to your last set and it wasn't that hard, then the next session you will know I warmed up way too light. It's not a waste of a session, by the way, whatsoever. It's really important that you just learn the process as you go. And I would say it'll take you 2 sessions max to figure out where you are, and then you smoothly sail through those for weeks and weeks and weeks. That's where the magic happens, in repetition. So you've got your roughly two warm-up sets, a working set, and then your top working set, which is your last set. And generally you should feel like on the last rep of your last set that you could not do one more. And if I was there looking into your eyes and I said to you, give me 3 more reps, you would truly need to be able to go, I couldn't. But if there's a voice in the back of your head that goes, probably could have done 5, I'm not going to let on to her, then the session or the set has not been really utilized properly. It's not been very effective for you. So we touched on progressive overload a minute ago. Basically, in short, it means doing more over time. So let's break that down into a real life session and what progressive overload should look like for you. So we'll talk about a deadlift in this example, but this applies the same to everything. So you will have a prescription, so to speak, of sets and reps, and that's your Bible. You can't disregard that and do whatever you fancy. Like if I'd asked you to do 8 reps and you're coming out with sets of 12 all the time, then you're not paying attention to your objectives, and you're kind of, it's impossible for me to give you progressions from that, right? So 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. And sorry, just another wee note. There's reasons why we do different rep ranges for different things. So it's really important that you pay attention to them. So in this set, 4 sets of 6 to 8 reps. So the 6 to 8 really are your lower limit and your upper limit, right? So any questions on this as we go, fire them in. This is sometimes a tricky one to get. So I will give you, normally I'll give you a range, right? That's pretty close. Meaning that this is your lower limit. So 6 is the lower limit. So I really wouldn't expect you to be able to do less than 6. And if you choose a weight that means you only get 4 reps, then that's too heavy for what we want. But if you do 8 reps, but you could have done more, then it's too light. So you're just trying to find the Goldilocks part in the middle where 6 to 8 reps is your sweet spot. So you want your lower limit to be 6, your upper limit to be 8. So if you're trying to decide, right, for my big set, I want a deadlift, say in this example, it's 65, right? Then that should really be difficult enough that I couldn't do more than 8, maybe 8 at a push, but that would be my max, right? So my warm-up set here is 40 kilos, not nothing or 5, but 40, because that's a decent warm-up weight for me, for example, in this person's example, right? And that's my warm-up set 1. It's still going to get my heart rate up. It's still going to make me feel a wee bit puffed. Great, that's what we want. But it's light enough that it's not overly challenging and I'm not at risk of injuring myself. It's completely manageable. Then I'll take a 1-minute rest, roughly, and then I'll go into my second set or even my first working set, and that's slightly more. And the reason I've decided to go up is because, well, I done all the 8 reps and I felt fine. Realistically, I probably could have done 16 reps. So I go up. But do you notice how I'm not just going straight to the, straight to gold and do what I want? I still need to warm up again. And this is still effective volume for me. So then I'm going to go and do 8 reps again for my next set. That went well, got all the 8. So what do you think I'm going to do now? I'm going to try and go heavier again. And so now I'm into really working hard. Like this was challenging, but now these last 2 are where it really works hard. So in set 3, I've gone up in the weight again. I've done 8 reps, but it was absolutely, yes, it makes so hard. So RPE 9, is my rate of perceived exertion. I would say, in my opinion, I was 9 out of 10. This is how you're thinking. You don't need to write all this down all the time, but you're thinking, right, that was like 9 out of 10, almost maximum effort. I could probably handle a wee bit more weight. So that's what I did. And I went up just by 5 this time. And I managed 7 reps maximum, couldn't do any more. RPE 10 out of 10, I'm done. So that's a pretty perfect set for me, right? The next time I go into the gym, this session will be logged in my app and it comes up in gray so that I can see what was there before. So really what I would probably do in my next session is repeat that until I can get 65 for 8, my upper limit. And if I do that in this session, then that's a job done. And then next week, I'll move everything up a wee bit. Maybe I'll go 45, 55, 65, 70, just wee bits. That's just an example. Does that make sense? Does anybody not understand what I'm explaining? Is it clear as mud or clear as a bell? So always pay attention to your lower limit and your upper limit. And we'll talk about how you can decide when you should move up as well. But if you're not maxing out the top reps, don't move up in the weight until you are, right? So here's another example, right? So same warm up, same first sets, this is all the same, but I decided to go up to 70 in the last set. Compare that to 65, right? So this isn't just another example, this is my other decision that I could have made. Like 65 for 6, I really hit the lower limit there. Like I just about got those 6 and it was 9 out of 10. So realistically, I should have stayed at 65 and tried just to get 6 again. That's my lower limit, like we'll accept 6. And then I would have stayed at 65 as my top set for a few weeks until I can do it for the 8. But got all carried away, was feeling great, done the 65. So I got too excited and I moved up to 70 and I slugged out 4 reps, nearly killed me. So that would be too heavy. Like this would be the kind of weights then that's when people kind of injure themselves if they go too heavy too soon. And you're only doing 4 reps and the volume gets very low then. Does that make sense? So that would be not the best example. The warm-up sets are fine. Like this probably would have been where I should have stayed. Does that make sense? So not so much questions, just feedback, I suppose. So interesting. I'm so used to doing 4 sets of a specific amount of reps with the same weight, which is really just, sometimes people call it junk volume. You might have ever heard of that phrase before. If you're just doing the same thing, like the volume, as in the amount of reps and sets you do, needs to be worth your while. And if you're doing the same things all the time, you are at best training to maintain what you've got. And sometimes it's just training beyond the point of maintenance. It's maybe not even stimulating enough and you gradually begin to lose muscle and get a wee bit weaker, which is crazy. Now, lifting weights and going heavier is a strange concept, and it's especially if you're really new to this way of thinking about your training. So somebody said, I've misunderstood RP and have been adding the wrong thing. You might not have, Janine, because there's 2 different ways to assess your effort, and they're both there in the app, RPE and RIR. So you'll see RIR a lot. That basically means reps in reserve or reps in the tank. So at the end of a session, or an exercise, you can rate it with either RPE or RIR. And there's a wee blog post in school about this. So if I say in general, by the way, this is good feedback for almost everybody, for your 2 big working sets at the end of all your exercises, you should be aiming to have an RIR of 2 or less. So that means you should not be able to eke out any more than 2 reps if you had to. But there will be some times where it's a good thing to go even lower than that. Maybe, RIR 1. You don't want to be able to do more than 1 more. Does that make sense? Then you're at the upper limit of your body's capabilities, which is the perfect place to get you to grow and get stronger. Look, a lot of people do get caught up in the comfort zone of training where you're a wee bit sweaty, you might feel a wee bit of a burn, some exercises are hard, some aren't, and you think you've ticked the box of training. You'll also get away with doing much less volume and exercises overall if you just push them hard and push yourself to your limit. Now, a quick question here about, is it okay to get all your steps in a few hours before the session? That's fine. And as long as you feel good and rested beforehand, nothing wrong with that. Some people go out for a big walk in the morning, they're coming home with 7,000 steps and then they don't train to 5. That's usually not a problem. But if you're in doing sprints or something on the treadmill and then trying to do squats and deadlifts, you're just probably leaving yourself a wee bit fatigued. You'll still be able to train, but you'll not reach your maximum potential. So Tatiana said, sometimes my first warm-up set, I go for more reps. That's a great strategy. I like to do that too. That volume increases my warm-up speed. So one of the best things that I like to do, so one of my exercises every week is always a bench press. And I still to this day warm up with the empty bar. Now, the empty bar used to be my goal. There, I used to press the 3s and I couldn't press them. And that took me a long time. So whenever I'm doing bench press, I will warm up with the empty bar for as many reps as I feel like it. And all in all, it takes 30 seconds, but it's a really efficient way to warm up. It's the same like doing bodyweight squats. Maybe I'll do 20 reps. And it's not technically in my app, but I know that that's a great way and that feels good for me. So it's okay to add an extra set for warm up if you want. Now, question, is it okay for beginners to start as light as 2, 3, 4, or 5? Absolutely. So look, I used to get really caught up in numbers when I first started taking training seriously. And I remember Kevin actually saying to me, Sarah, your muscles can't count. They don't know that that's 20 kilos or whatever. All that matters is how it feels and how tired that they're getting. But we can kind of get a wee bit attached to the, weights. Oh, I was able to do this before, but all that matters is, am I fatigued? That's what I want. I want to be tired at the end of this, and I want my muscles to be going, no more. You've had enough for today. So there's going to be some exercises where even adding weights isn't appropriate, right? If you've never done it before. Common one would be press ups and split squats. You shouldn't probably, I wouldn't expect you to do those with weight at all, probably not for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that means repetitive visits to that type of exercise. Like you'll probably do some version of a split squat or a lunge, maybe twice a week. And unless you can get the movement to look perfect, there's no benefit to adding weight because progression will happen there. So one of the things that I do that I've recently introduced in my own training session is a side plank variation, like this thing called a Copenhagen plank. And I can barely hold it because I haven't ever really trained that exercise. So I'm not going to go adding any weights to it anytime soon. So just remember how to gauge if you're lifting the right amount of weight is that at the top set, so my last set of my exercise, so bearing in mind you might have done 3 or 4 sets, am I absolutely pooped? Could I do one more rep if she asked me? If the answer is yes, then maybe it wasn't heavy enough and you could try to go more in the next session. Now, next question, how do I know what weight to start within the warm-up sets so I don't end up way too heavy? The only way that you'll know this is by doing it for your first 2 to 3 sessions. You're going to just have to figure it out as you go. So whenever I introduce a new exercise for me that maybe I haven't done in a long time, I'm just going to have to try and figure out what feels right. And typically compound exercises like squats and deadlifts, etc., you'll be able to lift a little bit more. Isolation exercises, lateral raises, bicep curls, triceps, it's not going to be the same. Same thing goes for squats and split squats, for example. What you can squat will not be the same as what you can do with a split squat stance because it's less stable. Your weight's going through one leg, not 2. And I remember a woman figuring this out in real time before my eyes one day, and we were doing split squats. She put the same weight on that she does for squats, and she nearly couldn't get back up off the ground. But she rightly thought to herself, well, sure, it's the same kind of thing, and it's both my legs. So look, you will figure it out over time, and it should only take you 1 or 2 sessions to nail it. And if you're not sure, just ask me. And look, we will know, because if you're too fatigued at the top set that you're not even finishing your reps, then it's too heavy. And it also is kind of depends on the exercise as well, how quickly you'll go up. The underpinning principle of this whole theme, track your lifts. Stop guessing. Like, we don't just get our wages and just blindly blitz them through the month. We go, right, I have bills to pay. I need to keep money for this, this, and this. And we pay attention to things that matter. And then sure, there you go. You have money that lasts and you're not going beans now for a month. 29 days beans for me. You pay attention to the things that matter and you plan. So in order to make this the most efficient way, then make sure you track your lifts. So question, I use 5 kilo dumbbells for some things and then the 10 kilo kettlebell. What is the next weight to move to? Well, I need a wee bit more context, Janine, on this specific exercise. And the main thing that I probably need is how does it feel when you do it? And like you're going to use different weights for all different exercises. And here's another great rule that would help you. The higher up the lift goes, the weaker you will become. So in real life, what that means is what you can deadlift off the ground is probably the most amount of weight that you can lift. But what you can press over your head is probably the least amount of weight that you can lift. So they shouldn't be the same. You've got less muscle groups to engage as you go through. So even compare that to like what you can press from the floor versus over your head, they're going to be less over your head. And so it just depends on the exercise and it depends on your form and if your form is good enough to handle moving up the next weight. So we briefly talked about this at the start, or maybe I talked about it a bit too much, but it's a bit of a bugbear for me because I want you to get the most out of your sessions that you possibly can, and it takes less time than you think. And we don't want to venture into this kind of territory where we just end up doing the same things all the time, right? Like, oh, I had a diagram, must have deleted it. No, there it is there. Like this is just junk volume in my opinion. The only time that a set like that, like same weight from set 1 to set 5, the only time that that is like okay is if you're brand new. And this truly is absolutely max for you. That's a common path that we'll see in the very start, but it's only the first couple of weeks. It should only take you a handful of sessions to begin to see progressions in your strength. So if you're guilty of same weight, same reps every week, and you're like, must get me 10s, then I'll get me 5s and I'll do maybe this and I'll do maybe that. You're just coasting along and you're exercising. And then you can't be cross at yourself for not getting any stronger or seeing any change when you haven't been actually putting in the effort of going out of your way to get stronger. You have to make your sessions hard, and that's a good thing. So in this example, the goal is 5 sets of between 4 and 6 reps. But like this person nailed it on set 1. And if she was honest with herself and thought, that was all right, then she would go heavier on the next set, 42, maybe 45. Like progression isn't 5s and 10s. Sometimes it's 1 kilo each side. So if the next set up, she put on 45, got 6, she should go heavier. And then you might do, like say she goes up to 50. Maybe she will do that for 2 sets because that's a new number that she's never lifted. That takes a wee bit of time to master. But in general, same weight start to finish tells me a lot about what you're doing when you're in the gym. And I'm sure anybody who's had me examine their training sessions, they've seen me spot that straight away. Now, in this example here, and like I've written test your knowledge so you can look and see what you think if this is good or not, right? Set 1, 6 reps, achieved. She moved up to 50 kilos, 6 reps, done it, moved up to 60. So remember the goal is upper limit 6 reps. So she got 6 reps, she moved up to 70 and only got 5. So this is a good example of overload. She didn't go any heavier and she still got less reps because this is the new weight. That's a good way to plan this out. So the next time you do this session, this is all going to stay the same until everything happens for 6s. Does that make sense? This is an example of going too high too soon. So exactly the same thing happens. She done 70 kg, but only got 5. And this is assuming that she couldn't do 6, right? You're being honest with yourself when you do this, but get carried away. That felt great. Goes up too heavy, gets 1 big, slugged out rep. Way too much of a jump. She should have kept it at 70. Does that all make sense? Any questions on weight selection or progressive overload or anything along those lines? Hit me up. So I suppose that might make it seem like I'm telling you just keep lifting heavier in the name of what's good. But it really, isn't as black and white as that. The most important thing is it all comes down to fatigue. Am I fatiguing my muscles? It doesn't matter what weights we use. It matters how I am feeling at the end of it. So that means the goal of your workout should be to take your muscles to the point of failure or fatigue. You don't want to train to failure every single day, but as close to that as you can tolerate. And when what that means is you just can't do any more reps with good form, no matter what weight you're using. So let's say you're doing bicep curls and you get to rep 10 and they're going really, really, really slow. And then the next thing you're doing this here and swinging it up, that's not working. So if you physically can't do the rep without good form and then you're using momentum, that's failure. That's a good thing. Or say you do a body weight squat and you're doing loads of reps at the end and you get down to the bottom and you're just not getting back up again, or it was really, really hard and you just think, I couldn't get back up again if I sat down. That's what fatigue feels like, and that's a good thing. You know, you should be working yourself hard. So it's easy to know when you're not lifting heavy enough, right? If you can finish all your sets and all your reps with relative comfort, then you're not lifting heavy enough. That doesn't mean that it might not be a bit burny. That's okay. Burned is just lactic acid coming into the muscle. That's not like a sign your muscles are growing right away. But if you can finish all the sets and all the reps and it was pretty good and you're just feeling a bit out of breath, then you're probably not lifting heavy enough. There's a good wee rule that you can use for yourself. And I like to just call it the rule of 5, right? So in every set that we do, and when I say sets, I'm talking about the big ones, the important ones, like your last 2. You've got what's called 5 maximally effective reps. So you see when you're training, let's just say we're doing bicep curls again, and you get to the point where it's starting to get really uncomfortable. From that point, you should be attempting to do 5 reps more. So say the goal is like 15 reps and you get to like rep 14, or say you get to rep 13 and it's like, oh, this is a bit burny, and you grind out 2 more and you're like, oh, forget about it. But if it was only uncomfortable for the last 2, you probably have more juice in the tank and you maybe could have just went on and pushed yourself to see what failure feels like. It's also perfectly fine to do that. Let's say you did misjudge and you did actually lift too light and you get to the last set and you've done your 15 reps and you feel like you could do more. Just do more and just leave a note saying, that was obviously too light and I ended up doing 20 reps. It'll give you a great benchmark to go back to when you go to do your session the next time, and you will know, right, well, I finished on using a pair of 5s, but on 18 reps, I'm going to try the 6s this time, make my time more efficient. Lifting heavy is relative to the individual. So it doesn't matter what I lift, what you lift, what your friend lifts. It matters how it makes you feel and what you get out of it. So what's heavy for you and heavy for me might mean 2 different things. And like for me personally, for example, 10 years ago, 40 kilos was the maximum deadlift that I could do. That was my goal. But now it's too late for me to warm up with, but that's taking years. Once upon a time, as I said to you, the bar, I couldn't press the bar. The empty bar was my goal. And it took me 9 months to be able to press the bar. I mean, I'm telling you, I had chicken arms. And now I would just do that as my warm up, right? So heavy is relative to you and only you. And you shouldn't ask anybody else, what are you lifting? I'll try that. Now, this is a wee diagram that I like to use for explaining how to choose your upper and lower limit, right? So this side is your lower limit. That's your whatever is this number of reps. And then this is your upper limit. So that could be 6 to 8 reps, 12 to 15 reps, 15 to 20 reps, whatever we say, right? And that's your upper limit and that's your lower limit. So how will you know when to increase or decrease? So if my goal is 10 reps and for whatever exercise, doesn't matter, I use 10 kilos and I've done 10 reps, then I increase the weight. And you're only going to increase it by a small increment, like 1 to 2 kilos. That's it. If it's a big compound lift, maybe you could go a wee bit heavier, but once you get up to big numbers, adding 2 kilos to a deadlift is the difference between you getting a PB and not. So 1 to 2 kilos is perfect. So if you're doing shoulder press and you do 10 reps, 1 to 2 kilos we can add to that. So look, now I moved up to my next set, 12 kilos, done the 10. I'm going to increase it again, 14. And I now hit my low limit. Look, I only got 8 reps there, so I'm keeping that. And I'm going to work at that for my next set. Or let's say I do 7 reps and I can't do any more. It's too heavy. I'm going down the weight for my next set. Does that all make sense? Any questions? Fire them in. I just have a couple of like quick fire questions to finish with you now, and then we can have a chat and get all, everybody buzzing to get to the gym after this. I don't want you to be afraid to lift. I don't want you to be afraid of the weight section. The honest truth is most of the men don't even know what they're doing anyway, so don't even look at them. They are just there trying to figure it out as well. Don't fear getting heavier and getting stronger in the gym. Just try it, and try increments rather than big jumps. I think sometimes we end up being afraid to go heavier because maybe once ever you added too much and it's kind of freaked you out, and then it's like, oh, I don't do that anymore. I've seen that happen. The fear is common, but it will hold you back. So all you have to do is try. Worst case scenario, doesn't move. And at least you know where you are in relation to that weight. Now, we don't want you to ego lift, or lift what makes you feel good, or sacrifice technique. Technique is everything. And by the way, this whole presentation is made on the assumption that you're doing the exercises as they look in the videos to perfection, with proper depth and control, and you're moving them slowly, and you're not flinging them to get it done quickly, which also doesn't work. But if you're always picking the weights that feel safe, then your body has no reason to adapt. You're not going to get bulky. You will get stronger, leaner, more defined. Your bones will be better. Your muscles will be in better health. You're more likely to get hurt by staying weak or getting weaker, or using poor form, or really lightweight for high reps. So inefficient. And like, you would literally have to do 1,000 reps to reach the point of failure, right? So reframe the fear. Heavier doesn't mean dangerous. It means you're growing and you're getting stronger. So you know when to go up in weight when you can hit the top end of your range and do all your reps with good sets, with good form. There's no significant struggle in the final 2 to 3 reps. That general feeling like, I could have done more, like I really probably could have done a couple more. You might not want to do a couple more, but that's not what I'm asking you. So in that case, increase your weight by the next available smallest jump, 1 to 2 kilos, and only increase if your form is solid. You stay at the current weights that you're using when you hit the middle of your rep range. So if your goal is 8 to 10 reps and you're working at 9 or 8, stay. Don't go any less. The final reps should feel challenging but still have good control, and you're steadily making progress week to week. We want to make sure your form is always, always solid. And then finally, it's okay to drop weight. In fact, I encourage it sometimes. It's really important. If you can't hit the bottom rep range, so if your goal is 8 to 10 reps and you're only getting 6, you need to go lighter to get the most out of that exercise and to protect your form. If your form breaks down early into the set and you're using like swinging motions to get the weights up, you can feel your joints compensating, techniques going out the window, then that's a good time to move down in the weight. You'll get more benefit from reducing the load slightly and being able to master the movement for how it's supposed to feel and look. So training to failure is important. It's important that you get to that point to see what that feels like, to the point where you can't move the weight one more time. Now, you don't want to train to failure on your warm-up sets. Remember, sets 1 to 2 are protected for your body to wake up and warm up and your joints to get lubricated, and this is what we're about to do. But your final 2 sets should be where all the work happens, and you should be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Because, remember your rule of 5, you've got 5 maximally effective reps and you need to utilize them. And muscle grows when it's being stimulated to break down. So whenever you get that sore feeling in the gym, it's common in the first couple of days. Now, you don't want to feel that all the time, but it's a good sign at the start that you've done something that's asked a lot of your body. But whenever we train and you take your muscles to the point where they've worked hard, you create tiny micro trauma in the muscle cell, which is exactly what you want to do. So you tear the muscle or create damage, right? They're microscopic. And then the next day you rest and you sleep and you eat protein and drink water. And then the muscle very quickly repairs itself and adapts. and then it grows denser, stronger, leaner. It's got better quality muscle tissue, and it's ready to handle something more challenging the next time. Whereas if you're just moving the muscles and stretching them from A to B, they're not getting any stronger, and they're certainly not toning up. That's not what that means. So you always have to train to failure with proper form, and that's the point where you just can't do anything else. And that's actually where the most growth happens. We want to make sure that we recover in between training sessions. So when someone comes to me and they say, I train every day, I'm going, you probably don't. If you physically do not need days off to rest and between your sessions, then you are most definitely not training hard enough anyway. You will physically feel the need for a rest day, which is why 3 to 4 sessions a week is the sweet spot. And training multiple days in a row isn't advisable either, because when we go to the trouble of making the session hard and you work the muscle down, if you don't give it time to recover, it won't grow. You'll just keep eating back into the repair cycle, and you'll not feel the benefit of that really hard session because the muscle's not getting peace to grow or repair. So training smarter, not harder is the theme. So things that'll slow down your progress. Training the same muscle days in a row, which is common when people really want to work on something like, oh, my arms are this and my legs are my trouble part. So they just train it every day. The volume is too much. You're probably constantly eating back into your recovery cycle, and you'll not see the benefit of all that work because you're just breaking down already broken down muscle, and it's never getting a chance to grow. If you don't take rest days and don't get enough sleep, when you sleep, everything grows and repairs. And that can't be overlooked. If you have everything else nailed, training, nutrition, rest days, but your sleep is shot to bits, you're still not going to get the most out of your recovery. If you train to burn calories or feel sweaty or just to feel the burn, likely is you're not training to failure and you're training to chase the wrong things. You absolutely need to eat. You have to eat calories, protein, and fiber in order to recover from the work you're going through in the gym. So make sure you don't become underfueled and underfed. We kind of talked about this cardio before weights. If you go in and run on the treadmill for half an hour and then do a leg day, it's not going to be your most efficient leg day. If you're going in doing lots of jumping around and exhausting yourself, and then you're going in to train, you're going to be a bit fatigued. Your program is designed in a very specific way, by the way. So sometimes people ask me, can I change the order of the session? And that's sometimes, it just depends. I would need you to tell me what you're going to change. But they're written in such a specific way so that, the majority of the bulk of the work happens at the start of the session. And then the secondary exercises are complementary to what you've just done. And so there is a rationale behind program design. So don't just change it because the gym's busy. It would be better if we could tweak the session to make it suit you. If you do the exercise but don't pay attention to the sets and reps, you're going to end up wasting your time. And then the final cherry on top is not tracking your lifts. Please track your lifts. Now, burpees are just an example, but the thought here is, oh, I don't like that exercise. Look, can you take that out? Somebody says to me the other day, oh, what's that? Devil press? Oh, I don't want to do that. Somebody actually says to me in the gym, I don't like burpees. It's like, but do you not like them? Are they just hard? Because I don't like them either. But the thing is, you'll never push yourself out of your comfort zone if you keep taking out the things that feel hard. So I encourage you to ask yourself honestly, do you dislike it? Or does it just feel hard and uncomfortable? Or is it new and unfamiliar? Or is it genuinely hurting you is different? So for example, I talk about squats all day and all night, but right now I am in a no squat zone because I have a knee injury and I haven't been able to squat for months. So I can't do that. I want to do that, but I can't right now. So if there's something that's genuinely hurting you, that's different. We can't do that. But if it's something that's just difficult, then that's another story. So look, whenever you see something that you're going, I don't like it, or it's uncomfortable, then communication is the best way forward there. We're not here to punish you. I want you to love this. So we're here to problem solve. So make sure you keep us in the loop. And sometimes we can swap things, but often it's about building confidence through repetition, especially in complex things, deadlifts, multi-joint things, squats, barbell work. introducing a barbell to your training plan for the first time is a big step, and people can shy away from it just because it's new territory. So don't skip the warm-up sets. They matter a lot because they activate the right muscles before your working sets. They let you practice the movement pattern so that you're building movement competency, so you're doing the exercise correctly. You build confidence before you go into your heavier sets. It massively reduces the risk of injury by easing your joints and tissues into it. And then it helps you gauge your working weights. So 2 hard sets is plenty if you make them worth your while. Now, it primes your central nervous system. Lifting weights is neurological as well as physiological. And that matters because, like, if you just jumped out of your car and ran into the gym and put the most weight on the machine that you wanted to do, you wouldn't be able to do it first and foremost. And that, have you ever had a day where you went, I've done this before, but now I can't today? Chances are you've not warmed up properly. If your central nervous system is underprepared, then coordination is off, your power output is lower, you're more likely to compensate with poor form and then underperform. Leave the gym scratching your head going, I've done that before, when the difference likely is you had an excellent warm-up and you were ready for the lift. A good warm-up equals a good central nervous system activation. So each warm-up set teaches your brain how to fire the right muscles at the right time, and you feel connected to what you're doing. In the same way, I say to people, see, whenever somebody goes to try a new lift, and if I'm there with them or we're talking through it, and they say, I'm not going to be able to do that, I always say to them, go away and come back. Go and walk around in a circle and come back. If you come up thinking incapable immediately, you won't lift it. But the difference in self-talk really matters when it comes to getting weight off the ground. So don't come up feeling down and, I don't know, sure, I'll just try. I'm going to try. I'll give it my best shot. If it moves, it moves. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And at least you know. So your central nervous system sets the ceiling for your strength. So make sure you prime it before you load it. This is a common question. Someone asked me this today ahead of this call tonight. I hold back in the gym because I'm afraid that I look stupid or I don't know what I'm doing. That is a limiting belief. I'm sure that there's many of us here that have thought that exact same thing. And that will really hold you back. I used to do it too. I used to not do things that, you know, if the gym was busy, I would have held back from doing certain things. But it will only hold you back unnecessarily so, and all it takes is 1 or 2 attempts of that exercise to build confidence, build the muscle, as in literally the muscle, the mind to muscle connection. It will build confidence for you. And the main thing is everybody else is just trying to figure it out. And the people who are in the gym who you look at and look like they really know what they're doing are the people who will be most helpful, and they will be the people who would be delighted to help you if you ask them a question. So it's an inspiring community to be part of, and everyone was once a beginner. Nobody was born lifting weights, remember that. And I was once a complete beginner who couldn't lift 1 kilo dumbbells. So you will fall in love with it. Now, as always, I talked a lot longer than I thought, but I'll spend a few minutes now with any final questions, because I know there's a lot of chit chat, and like there's a lot of chit chat in the chat box. There's a lot of things that you will probably be thinking now as you go away, excited to go into your next training session. So listen, I'll call it a day from here, but I'm going to spend a few minutes now just waiting to see if anybody needs anything explained a bit more. Any final questions, you write them into the chat box. I do have a question there, so go for it. Now's your chance. We've got 5 minutes, so throw them all at me. So question number 1, does it matter what time you do your strength sessions? Is there an advantage to morning or evening? Multi-layer question. You're going to be sorry you asked that. So yes and no. So listen, have you ever found personally that you feel better training at a certain time of the day? Then number 1, everyone naturally has a chronotype, which means, you know, your bedtime is of a natural time, your wake time is a natural time, and your body's clock is more in sync to a certain time. So I've learned over time that my favorite time to train is mid-morning, and that works for my chronotype. Anybody that wears an Oura ring will know this, and they really, really enjoy it. I have tried early morning sessions, late night, and I never get as good of a session as I do whenever it's in the mid-afternoon, 12 o'clock thing. The second part of that is by that time, I will have probably had something to eat and I'll be feeling pretty fed and ready to go into the session. If you train early in the morning and you feel like you're just scratching the surface, chances are your blood glucose is getting a wee bit compromised as you train, because that's a side effect of lifting weights. Your blood glucose gets lower. And if you're going in fasted into the session, chances are that is what's keeping you from reaching your potential. So pick a time that feels right, but also pick a time that's convenient. And look, there's going to be some times where you just have to compromise, like Sunday morning, one of my favorite training sessions of the week, but it happens at 7 a.m. And that's not the best time that I like to train, but I still do it. So 2 of my sessions, I'll do them in that favorite spot, and then the other 2, I'll do them because it just has to work for my schedule. And it would be an advantage to you to train being in some way fed, even if it's a small meal, just at least to keep your blood glucose stable. It's okay to do 2 strength sessions in a row, considering that the volume isn't too much and you're not overly training the same muscle group. So if it's a generally full body split, I probably wouldn't recommend doing like squats and deadlifts back to back on 2 days, because that's just a lot of central nervous system fatigue. Or doing like a session that's got loads of upper body, for example, 2 days in a row. You know, I wouldn't train the same compound lift 2 days in a row either, but I certainly would do 2 days in a row, but there are always sessions that are very complementary of each other. Let me see, any more questions? I think that might be us. So that's us. Any other questions, fire away. But other than that, I'll let you go. Lona said, I only have beef protein before training, as I do mine before work, and then I eat after. And Lona, do you see the main thing that women need before training is about 15 grams of protein to activate something that we call muscle protein synthesis. So if you're having a quick protein shake in the morning before, that's probably plenty. You could even just have a piece of fruit as you drive in, like, or, I don't know, if you're training from home, like a wee mandarin orange or like an apple, just something to give you some carbohydrate, and then you have a wee bit of protein, and then that's perfect. Your main meal can be after. Quite often I will train in the morning with just a protein shake as well. And that's fine. And I know that works for me and I can do that. And I used to train fasted just out of my own preference. I don't anymore. But that's definitely a good plan. So I think that's everybody's questions, and that was a great one. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you have afterthoughts and any other questions that you didn't quite make sense of tonight, my inbox is always open. So hope you enjoyed it, girls, and I'll let you go, and I'll see you very soon. All right, everybody, good night.